President, it is the best of times. It is the worst of times. It's the age of wisdom, but it's also the age of jackassery.
John Kennedy just turned a Senate moment into a full-blown warning about America's safety, shutdown chaos, and military failure. What John Kennedy said today has shaken the entire political landscape of Washington. On one hand, he's saying that the dangerous alignment of China, Russia, and Iran is posing a direct threat to America. And on the other, Pentagon readiness, shutdown risks, and $1 billion defense mess are being exposed. But the most shocking thing of all, America is allegedly shooting down $25,000 drones with $1 million missiles. Is this national security or a total budget disaster? Be sure to watch the video to the end, because in today's breakdown, you'll understand that John Kennedy isn't just issuing a warning, he's exposing a reality that the mainstream media is softly covering.
President, it is the best of times. It is the worst of times. It's the age of wisdom, but it's also the age of jackassery. Sometimes I don't recognize our world. I'll give you one example, at least from my perspective. President Xi in China, President Putin in Russia, and the Ayatollah in Iran have formed a partnership. It's not an equal partnership. The managing partner is President Xi. Unless you're the reason your parents drink, I think you can see that. It's just obvious. And their goal, President Xi and his two junior partners, are to have Russia dominate Eastern Europe, to have Iran dominate the Middle East, and to have China dominate the Indo-Pacific, and have the freedom to roam throughout sub-Saharan Africa and South America, and the Arctic, and space. Now, that's the game plan. That is not a world that is safe for America. I do not want America to be the world's policeman. But I don't want Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin and the Ayatollah in Iran to be either. We have to meet this challenge. To do that, we have to spend more money on defense. I wish we didn't, but we do. Now, there are only three ways to do that, as you know, Mr. President. Through our budget, the regular appropriation process, through what's called a supplemental bill, which deals just with defense spending, and through the process of reconciliation. Passing a supplemental bill is not going to work for reasons, same reasons that we're not going to be able to pass a budget, about which we'll talk in a second. We have the option of reconciliation, but time is running out. And I hear all of the happy talk. I don't mean that really is in a pejorative sense, even though I realize it came out that way. But I hear all the happy talk from the House, and I've participated in that happy talk, saying we need to do a third reconciliation bill. But if I'm honest with myself, I know we're not. And when the press comes to me, one came to me today. One particular reporter, he was down by the escalators, kind of walking around, looking like he'd lost his luggage at the airport. And he came and he said, "I want to ask you a question, like I've got a quota every day." And he said, "So-and-so says we're going to have a third reconciliation. What's your response?" My response was honest: dream weaver. I wish it would happen, but I don't think it will. The only way to get more money to protect America is through our appropriations bill. We can also do a supplemental, which I just referred to, but if we can't pass an appropriations bill, we sure can't pass a supplemental. I'm on the Appropriations Committee. As you know, Mr. President, our budget is so big, we don't do just one bill. We do 12 mini bills. We divide it up. That's a lot of bills to pass. But we've done it before. We did it last year. The budget that we're operating under right now was passed in a bipartisan effort, with the exception of a small piece of Homeland Security. It was passed with a bipartisan effort and voted for by both Democrats and Republicans. That's the way it's supposed to work. Other than confirming presidential nominations, that's our most important job, to put together a budget. So we know it can be done. Now, our fiscal year, don't ask me why, runs from September 30 to October 1. So the budget under which we're operating right now, which all Democrats, and not all, but most Democrats and Republicans joined in on, is going to run out September 30. So we've been working on a new budget, which will begin October 1. I hope I'm wrong, but there's not going to be a budget. And if I'm wrong, I will come to this floor and I will say I was wrong. I apologize. But it is clear to me from our negotiations with my Democratic friends, and they are my friends. They're your friends too, Mr. President. We don't hate in this chamber. We try to get along. But it is clear to me from my discussions with my Democratic friends that there is no scenario under which they're going to pass a budget. They understand we have to spend more money on defense. President Trump has proposed a 42% increase in defense spending. That's pretty strong. That's strong as horseradish. We might could do it if we worked together and did it through a supplemental and regular order and a reconciliation bill. But without busting it up, I think 42% would be, even on our best day, very, very hard to do in regular order. I think if everybody were pulling in the same direction, we could probably do a 20 to 25% increase in defense spending in our regular budget. We'd have to borrow the money. Breaks my heart. And I know we can work hard to find some offsets, but we just have to do it. But here's the problem. My Democratic colleagues are not going to go along. They're not. I know they say they are, but they're not. First, in order to do a budget, you have to know how much money you're going to spend. Duh. We call that the top line. So when we go to our Democratic friends and say, let's negotiate a top line, they say, we're thinking about it. And we make an offer, and they say, we'll consider it. And then we make another offer, and they say, we'll consider it. And then we make a third offer, and they say, we're thinking about it. You know, when people act like they don't care, Sometimes it's not an act. They won't even negotiate seriously about a top line. We're together a lot. We talk among ourselves. And I have had some of my Democratic friends tell me privately, if you want to spend 25% more on defense, we want 25% more on non-defense. Welfare, social spending. Now, they know we're not going to agree to that. You know what that tells me? They don't want a budget. And I think that if we went to our Democratic colleagues today and said, okay, you win. We're going to spend 25% more on defense, and we'll spend 25% more on non-defense. Let's vote. Every single Democrat will vote no. Every single Democrat will vote no in the Appropriations Committee on the floor of the Senate. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize. I may be wrong, but I doubt it. Because my colleague, Senator Schumer, as is his right, is telling the Democrats not to agree to a budget. And Senator Schumer, as is his right, is taking his orders from the Graham-Plattner wing of the Democratic Party. That's not all Democrats. That is not all Democrats. But clearly, the Graham-Plattner wing of the Democratic Party is in control. And many members of Democratic leadership are scared to death of them. And they're going to do what the Graham-Plattner wing of the party wants. And what the Graham-Plattner wing of the party wants is to burn it down. Burn it down. They want chaos because they think it'll help them win the midterm elections. And for that reason, I don't think we're going to have a budget. We'll keep trying. Our chair is Susan Collins. Chairwoman Collins and Vice Chairwoman Patty Murray put together the budget last year. Did a great job. We know it can be done. But I think that's the game plan. And the cherry on top is going to be, you watch, we're going to get to September, and Republicans are going to say, well, we don't have a budget because you refuse to talk about it, because you want chaos, because Senator Schumer told you to create chaos, because the Graham-Plattner wing of the Democratic Party told Senator Schumer to tell you to create chaos. And we're going to say, let's not shut down government. Let's do what's called a continuing resolution. Just maintain the status quo so we can keep government open. And Senator Schumer is going to shut it down as tight as Dick's hat band. That's what's going to happen. That is what is going to happen. You heard it here first. And that is not fair to the American people. That is not fair to the American people in the world that we live in today. And that, in my opinion, is totally irresponsible in order to win a midterm election, to create that kind of chaos in this dangerous world. That, to me, is living proof that human evolution is a slow process. The American people deserve better. And if I'm wrong, I will come to this floor and say I was wrong. My Democratic colleagues are willing to negotiate. They don't have a predetermined game plan. They're not slaves to the loon wing of their party. They understand that the American people, both domestically and internationally, need help. I will be the first to say I'm wrong. And I may be wrong, but I doubt it. The American people deserve better. And if I am wrong, I hope they'll prove me wrong. Mr. Secretary General, thank you for your service. Mr. Secretary, I want to start with you. Is not the Air Force Global Strike Command at Barksdale Air Force Base the most spectacular thing you've ever seen in your life?
Yes, Senator. I was actually, when I was active duty, I was part of the Forerunner, which was Strategic Air Command. So
when are we going to address the staffing shortfalls there?
So I'll look to the general for a little bit, but we are having
briefly.
We are increasing to the tune of about 10,000 in the military strength within the department to try to address some of those funding or staffing shortfalls.
Briefly, sir.
The 27 budget has dollars in there to increase the end strength for the Air Force, as the Secretary noted, and that will allow us to get after a lot of the shortages that we have. The staff at Global Strike Command is certainly one of them. Other shortages that we have with maintainers, et cetera, those are all, the budget request will allow us to take care of those.
General, before I ask this question, I don't like to do it this way, but this will be an exception. I'm going to give you a point of view about what's going on around here. I know you hear all the happy talk, but I'm going to try to explain what's really going on, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but I doubt it. The president has pointed out that we have a crisis in defense and we need to spend a lot more money. I mean, look around. He is, of course, correct. He's asked for 42%. It's going to be tough in regular order to do that amount. But Republicans want to spend, we haven't come to a final conclusion on the number, anywhere from 20 to 25, 27% more in the budget on defense. My Democratic friends in the Senate, and they are my friends, have said privately, that's swell. We want to spend an additional amount of money on welfare. Now, they're smart people. They know that we can't do that, and we're not going to do that. If nothing else, it would explode the deficit. And besides that, as they know, we don't have a crisis in welfare like we have a crisis in defense. It's not like we're not spending a lot of money on welfare. If we would properly define the poverty rate, it wouldn't be 10%, it would be 1%. And I'm not against helping people less fortunate than I am. I am for standing up to China and Russia and North Korea and you know the other countries I'm talking about. Now, what does that tell me? That tells me that the Democrats have no intention of helping us pass a budget. And I also predict, if I'm wrong, I will apologize, that my friend Senator Schumer is going to shut down government tight as Dick's hat band, first chance he gets before the midterms. We'll be shut down. Eventually, we won't stay shut down. We will come out of it at some point. But we'll have to come out of it with a CR. How's that going to impact the Air Force's ability to protect this country? Because my Democratic friends, and they are my friends, want to play politics before the midterm elections.
Without a reconciliation and a year-long CR that keeps us at the 890-ish total, that would have significant impacts on our readiness. A lot of the investments we've just been talking about to meet the threats from the unmanned vehicles, as well as the the increased readiness for weapon systems, to increase the F-35 readiness, as well as the munitions procurement. All that is substantially impacted if we stayed at 890 without a reconciliation or other mechanism.
Well, I think you should prepare for it. Again, I hope I'm wrong, but I doubt it. You're going to hear a lot of happy talk from senators about how we need to spend more money on defense. But I think a lot of my colleagues have no intention of voting for a budget under any circumstances. They want government to be shut down, and I think Senator Schumer's going to accommodate them. So I would prepare for a shutdown and a CR. Last question quickly. Since we're shooting down $25,000 drones with $1 million missiles, why aren't we bear hugging Ukraine, which is the world's expert on drone technology, to combat drones with drones?
Senator, I'd say in many ways we are. We are looking to utilize our expertise. We are looking to utilize similar or same manufacturing supply.
But there's a hesitancy.
Not on our part, Senator.
I know, but the administration does not seem fully committed to partnering up with Ukraine. I don't understand why. They know more about drones than anybody.
The question now is, if Washington continues to be mired in budget fights, shutdown politics, and slow response, what will be most damaged? America's security, military readiness, or public trust? John Kennedy's core message is simple but dangerous. Threats exist from outside, and paralysis within the system is just as dangerous. And when you consider pressure from global enemies on one hand and budget deadlocks, staffing shortfalls, and costly defense decisions on the other, the picture becomes even more serious. So tell us in the comments, is Kennedy overreacting, or is he speaking the truth that others are afraid to say? If you want a more explosive breakdown of this issue, specifically drone warfare, shutdown politics, and the America versus global threat angle, like the video, subscribe to the channel and don't miss the next upload, because the next part is going to be even more shocking.